Good evening. This is Left, Right and Centre. I'm Nidhi Razdan. 6 army soldiers have died, including a major, in 3 separate encounters in the Kashmir Valley over the last few days. A worrying sign, especially since the winter snow hasn't even melted. And even more worrying have been the large crowds of people who've come to the funerals of terrorists and even obstructed security forces from doing their job. The army chief has now warned locals of harsh measures. Will this help or hurt peace in the Kashmir Valley? We'll be talking about that in our program tonight, and also our exclusive interview with former Home Minister and Finance Minister P. Chidambaram comes up at 8:30. He says he believes the army chief's comments were intemperate and that Kashmir needs a political solution since alienation is only increasing. But first, let's listen in to what exactly the army chief said yesterday, comments that have made big headlines today.
Now, these terrorists who have now graduated to the villages, and as we are conducting operations against them, we find that the local population somehow is not becoming supportive of the actions of the security forces. While our aim has been to conduct people-friendly operations, but the manner in which the local population is preventing us in conducting the operations, at times even supporting the terrorists to escape, and it is these factors that is leading to higher casualties toward the security forces. And all that I can say is, we would now request the local population that people who have picked up arms, and these are the local boys, if they want to continue with this acts of terrorism, displaying flags of ISIS and Pakistan, then we will treat them as anti-national elements and go helter-skelter for them. And those from amongst the population who are not supportive of the security of the forces to help us in bringing peace and tranquility, we may have to adopt some harsher measures against them.
Well, this is what former Home Minister Chidambaram told me earlier on the situation in Jammu and Kashmir. He began by criticizing the army chief for his comments, saying that he felt his words were intemperate, going on to say he believed that alienation in the Kashmir Valley was only increasing and that the only way out would not be force but a political solution. Mr. Chidambaram, I do want to ask you about Jammu and Kashmir, and there's a lot of concern again as we speak about the situation there. We've seen a series of encounters that have taken place in the last few days, even before the snow has melted in the Kashmir Valley. A number of soldiers, army jawans and a major have lost their lives in the course of that. And the army chief has said, interestingly, that the local population is not supporting us, even though we are requesting them to help us, and that if they don't help us, they will be treated as anti-nationals and will be dealt with accordingly. How do you see the statement of the army chief, Mr. Chidambaram?
Well, I think these are intemperate words. This is the wrong approach to Jammu and Kashmir. I have written extensively. I have written, I think, 4 or 5 columns or 6 columns in my book. I think the BJP's approach, the BJP-PDP coalition's approach, is a completely wrong approach. More and more alienation is setting in.
But these are the army chief's comments, not the government's comments.
Protests. Yeah, I said so. I think the army chief's comments are intemperate comments. The answer to Jammu and Kashmir is a political answer. We have to find a political solution. We'll have to reach out to the people of Jammu and Kashmir, reverse some of the things that we have done over the last many years, including when Congress was in government, and renew the compact that was the basis of Article 370. I have not hidden my views. I've been quite open about it.
Are you worried, though, that the situation that we're heading for possibly another spate of violence and unrest as we go into the summer? The fact that you have local people coming out in large numbers, obstructing encounters, coming out for the funerals of terrorists, which they've done in the past, but now you have new areas, Mr. Chidambaram, where villages are coming out, like North Kashmir. North Kashmir, for the longest time, you didn't see villagers coming out in those numbers and obstructing security forces and coming out for militant funerals, and now they are. Does that worry you?
I am very worried. I am very worried. I am very worried, and therefore I would ask the government to halt this approach and adopt a different approach. I have written extensively about what approach may work in Jammu and Kashmir. I am very, very worried. There are more infiltrations today, more encounters, more deaths of both civilians and Jawans and armed forces personnel. I think things are quite bad, and if the government does not change its approach to the problem of Jammu and Kashmir, it will only get worse.
You can watch that full interview with Mr. Chidambaram in a few minutes at 8:30 tonight. Joining us on the program this evening, General Hasnain is with us. He is, of course, an old Kashmir hand, having been the GOC of the 15 Corps. We have also with us Mr. A.S. Dullat, the former chief of the RNAW. Siddiq Wahid, political analyst and historian, joins us from Srinagar tonight. Anuradha Bhasin Jamwal, the executive editor of the Kashmir Times, and Harinder Baveja, the editor of special projects at the Hindustan Times, is with us tonight. General Hasnain, to you first. Mr. Chidambaram says he believes the army chief's comments were intemperate. But perhaps even more importantly, he says this is not the approach to Kashmir. You have to abandon this approach of force and look at something else, look at a political solution.
Nidhi, first of all, for a change, if someone has spoken out in favor of a slightly different change, or I would say a change of tack, it doesn't necessarily mean it is intemperate. What the army chief has done here is to take the situation by its throat, I would say, and spoken very frankly about it. His troops have suffered. We've had casualties in the army. There has been intervention and interference by mobs, against which the army has been soft so far, completely. And therefore, what he has chosen to do is to convey a message that, look here, through 2016, the youth suffered. I don't want you to suffer next year. Please change your ways. If you change your ways, nothing will happen. Otherwise, if you don't, then the army, the security forces are going to target you. Now, it's a question of perceptions. What is happening is that a lot of people in Kashmir are taking it as per to their convenience, perception to their convenience, as if these words are targeting the entire Kashmiri populace, the entire Kashmiri awam. That is not so. It is only targeting those troublemakers, those people who are at the forefront, trying to carry out interference in such operations. And I think everyone is aware of this. Secondly, I think he's conveying a very correct message to his troops.
No, one second. When you say everyone is aware of this, there's also a part where he says those from amongst the population who are not supportive of the security forces in helping us bring peace and tranquility, we may have to adopt some harsher measures against them. Is there a problem of ambiguity in this statement?
Well,
that it could be misinterpreted?
It is something which has been spoken on the spur of the moment at a very, should I say, emotive moment when he was at a wreath-laying ceremony, where a number of bodies of his soldiers had arrived. The Prime Minister was there. He was seen in conversation with the Prime Minister for some time before that. So he has spoken in a moment of emotions. Sometimes it happens, but I don't think there's anything wrong with those words. And those words have been spoken with an appropriate message.
No, could have been a better choice of words, because you're saying he got emotional.
I don't think so. I think there's nothing wrong with it. These words have to be interpreted by people. And they are being interpreted by people.
But they're from the army chief. Should they be open to interpretation is the question when it comes from the chief of army staff.
I agree that there should be more clarity in what you speak. But in such circumstances, sometimes it's better to leave issues to perceptions.
All right, Mr. Dullat, let me bring you in on this. Do you agree with General Hasnain there that it should be left to perception? Because again, there is some ambiguity in what the army chief has said. Of course, he's very clear that those who are obstructing the security forces, we want to go after them. And then, he made a more ambiguous statement, which I just read out. But do you believe, Mr. Dullat, that having seen the unrest that we just did, and as we head into summer again, that this is an approach that could work?
No, I beg to differ with General Hasnain. I have no issue with what the army chief said. He's entitled to his views, and that's fine. And I understand the emotion where it's coming from also. But I would go along with what I heard Mr. Chidambaram say just a little while ago, that I think, last summer was a particularly bad summer in Kashmir. Violence, killings, blindings. And once the Darbar moved down to Jammu, we thought things would calm down and peace would return, and things did calm down. and it was a good opportunity for the government to move forward. But nothing has happened. When I say move forward, it's my firm belief, like Mr. Chidambaram, that there is no military solution to Kashmir. We need to understand this, and that we need to engage, and we need to engage with Kashmir and with Pakistan. And the thing is that not engaging is to my mind not an option at all. We need to understand the soul of Kashmir. I think Prime Minister Vajpayee understood that, and that is why he talked both to the Kashmiris and to Pakistan. And I think that is the requirement today more than anything else. It is a political solution, and you have to find a political answer. The sooner the better, both for Kashmir and for India.
Well, as you said, we need to understand the soul of Kashmir, and I want to take you up on that in more detail in just a moment. But Shami Baweja is here with us, and Shami, you've written a piece for the Hindustan Times, and you have said that the words used by the army chief jarred.
Yes.
Why?
So Nidhi, I've been going to Kashmir for 27 years, and the army's been there that long. You know, you don't treat the local population like enemies. The words jarred because he did not single out militants. The line between a Kashmiri and a militant or a terrorist has just been blurred by what the army chief has said. Your endeavor should be to try and reach out to the local population. I'm afraid what he said yesterday is going to have the opposite effect. Why are we not asking the questions of why people are out with stones? And are you telling me that everybody out with a stone deserves a bullet? Is that our Kashmir policy? And General Hasnain talked about the army chief being emotional. I'm sorry, this is not a company commander speaking. He's the topmost general of the Indian Army. You know, I can understand that no general would like to see the bodies of his men lying in coffins. And of course you need to motivate your troops. But by using this language, he's done a disservice not just to the Kashmiris, but to the nation and the rank and file of the army who serves there, because I know from my experience what a difficult job the army does in the valley. He's just made their job
But Shami, to be
a lot
fair,
tougher.
When he spoke, the army chief spent a lot of time explaining that, you know, we want to go after those people, for instance, who are holding the flags. He's talking about the stone throwers who are obstructing actual operations and letting terrorists get away.
So are a lot of women. Nidhi, are we going to start shooting the
so
Kashmiri women? And okay, I'm glad you brought up ISIS. You had people, scores of people from Kerala join the ISIS. Give me one example of a Kashmiri joining the ISIS. I remember Farooq Abdullah once saying that people who wave the ISIS flag are doing it to provoke you. Are we going to fall for this provocation? There's not one, I repeat, not one Kashmiri youth who has crossed over to the ISIS.
General
And we need to
Hasnain, a quick
remember
response
that.
from you before I open this
Just
up.
a 30-second response to this. He's used the word, we will take tough measures.
Harsh.
Do tough measures means bullets? I'd like to ask Mr. Baweja.
What does it
Do
mean?
they mean bullets?
What does it mean?
Tough measures is left to perceptions of commanders on the ground. It can mean a simple danda. It can mean a harsh word. It can
Is
just
that
mean
what
an
the
arrest.
army operates with in
Absolutely,
Kashmir with
yes,
dandas?
it does.
I'm sorry.
It leaves enough space for its officers and its men to operate as per the conditions. It doesn't mean firing bullets.
It doesn't mean firing bullets, but
No.
it's open to interpretation. Okay, Siddiq Wahid.
No, Nidhi, just 20 seconds. You know, the words were very, very belligerent. He said, we will go helter-skelter. I have not heard an army chief talk like that. What is the meaning of helter-skelter?
Do army chiefs
Are
talk
you
softly
scaring?
otherwise?
Are you
Are they
scaring
known
the
to talk
Kashmiris?
Although the
softly
meaning of the
otherwise?
words helter-skelter has a completely different meaning. I don't
Completely
think he
different.
quite meant to say that. But Siddiq Wahid, how is this playing out in the Kashmir Valley? Siddiq, General Hasnain says that it's being politically, a certain interpretation of the army chief's comments is being sort of conveniently used in the Kashmiri media and playing out over there. Is it being taken badly? How is it being taken?
I think, Nidhi, in part it is par for the course. I mean, you know, there's very little that surprises us in Kashmir. I want to, therefore respond to you by saying that we need to get a sense of proportion here, a perspective, which is which is that, I just heard General Hasnain talking about, how the general was wrought by emotion at seeing the coffins. And I can appreciate that. Any death, is painful. The question that I want to ask is then, how emotional should Kashmir be after coming out of a summer with close to 100 deaths of civilians, unarmed? So the point is that we've lost sense of perspective completely. I remember in the 2005-6 era, when General Hasnain himself was, I think, in Baramulla, and we were saying that it is very sort of over the top for army vehicles to be rushing in between civilian vehicles, banging them with sticks on top, that this is a kind of, of use of force which is completely unnecessary. And to the credit of whoever, put it in place, it was rolled back, And now we are discussing what, as a person living in Kashmir, and as a Kashmiri facing, what the army chief said, it sounded like a threat to civilians. I mean, this is plain and simple. So I don't know. I mean, we do speak amongst ourselves. In fact, just before I came in, I was having a quick word with someone about it. And, they were literally sort of laughing about, what was said and where do we go from here?
And as you said, it's been perceived to be a threat against civilians. And Anuradha, what is then, the way forward? Do you believe that in a sense Delhi has taken its eye off the Kashmir ball completely, especially because it's been quiet, it's winter, and it's been quiet because it's been winter. I want to add that and stress that, and not for any other reason. And that this would have been the ideal time to perhaps come up with some kind of a plan, some thought into some kind of engagement, and that's completely missing.
In fact, there have been several opportunities in the last decade or so that have been lost. I don't know if this was the right time. We've already lost much time. The kind of incidents that took place in 2016, New Delhi should have woken up. But the state, unfortunately, with respect to Kashmir, has always abdicated its responsibility and left the military and the security forces to clean the mess. Now, Kashmir does not require a military solution. Yesterday, when the army chief is making this very bizarre statement, it's actually an open admission that the entire population is not with you. So there is a need for a political resolution. I'll agree with Mr. Chidambaram, though I'm a little surprised that it comes from a man who was, when he was in power, there was no such movement forward.
Absolutely.
In fact, if we have to see the genesis of the fresh wave of militancy, we need to go back to 2008, 2010. 2010, when that summer of 2010 was the boiling point.
Absolutely, and I want to take what you're saying to Mr. Dulat, because Mr. Dulat, I think Chief Minister Mehbooba Mufti recently said in the assembly that about 59 local boys have joined militancy since Burhan Wani's death. Now that is something we need to be very concerned about. What can the government do in a situation like this, when you have more and more local militancy now on the rise?
Well, it's quite obvious, if there was any doubt since the summer, that alienation is growing. When the army chief says that, all villages are coming out in support of militants, this is not the first time. It happened right through the summer, and on occasion the army commander there had put his hands up and said there's nothing the army can do in a situation like this. And that is quite right. The army is not expected to intervene in where whole villages come out and gun down people. The obvious way forward is to engage. And like somebody said, I think maybe I said it myself, that the winter was the worst time. The winter is normally a season of hibernation in Kashmir, And it's been a pretty severe last month or so. It's been very cold there. And somebody should have taken advantage of this, but nobody seems interested in talking. As far as the state government goes, it's as good as not being there. We don't see any reaction at all from the state government. The very fact that the army has to respond or somebody else from the security forces has to respond